This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Tom, are you a Hostess snack cake guy? Is there anything as a kid or maybe even now that you indulge in, from Ding Dongs to Twinkies to various other snack cakes you enjoy?
Oh, you guys, man. Everything's subject to be discussed.
Well, it's National Hostess Day, so that's why. So
okay, well, I don't know. I don't make it a habit to buy them. My wife likes some of those things, Twinkies and stuff, so I'll nibble on them here and there. But Ty, it's just weird that the first thing you think about after you eat a powdered donut is whether or not someone will want to kiss you.
I just think the only thing I think about is there more in the bag? That's the only thing. Is there another one for me to eat?
Did I eat them all? Yeah. No.
That's my first
Tommy,
thought.
You're on the weight loss kick, Tommy, so you got to stay away from the whole bag.
I know it.
You're 20 plus down, right?
Yeah. I got to get to running a little bit more. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, you get thee behind me, say, when you walk down that aisle at Sam's that has all that stuff in bulk, just I avoid that aisle anymore. So
when you walk into Aldi, the snacks and the cakes and all that, it's the first thing you see.
Well, of course.
It's really different.
They want it to be the first thing the kids see when they go to the store with their parents. They know how it works.
Oh, man. Well, Tom, we'll move on from food. I want to ask you about Mekhi Mitchell first, and just kind of what's going on. This is the last day for anyone to utilize the transfer portal in basketball. Arkansas right now, if Jordan Walsh and Devontae Davis came back, would have a set roster. We'll see what happens with the Ron Holland situation. But do you think we see any news on the front of Mekhi Mitchell at any point today?
Well, I mean, if today's the last day, I guess there's a chance for it. It was a little strange that they had the promo, the U of A produced graphic of him, like, I'm back or whatever. I don't know what it said, but it just appeared to show, hey, he's back. And then they pull it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little strange. You would have thought that everybody would have been on board if that had been produced and displayed. And so I'm not sure. I think they need Mekhi Mitchell. I think they need his rebounding and his presence. I mean, he had some huge games for them. If you think back early in the season, there was a lot of games where he scored the first basket. They'd run pick and rolls.
Yep.
And he'd get the first score of the game for them. There was a stat going on, 5 or 6 straight games, and there were some games where he'd score 8 of their first 10 or 12 points. I think I'd like to see him back in the Razorback uniform.
Tom, to that point, I have a take, and you may agree with it or not. A lot of fans might disagree. I take Mekhi over Ron Holland. I just think you need a big man on that roster. If you lose him, you just don't have a lot of size and strength. Not that he's the biggest in terms of girth. What do you think about the idea of keeping Mekhi over a prospect like Ron Holland?
Yeah, I don't know if it comes to that, and maybe if you're crunching the numbers on it, there's one spot left for one of those two. You're comparing. Well, we know they need forward depth. We know they need rebounding and shot blocking and all those things Mekhi Mitchell can do. And so I can't speak to what Ron Holland will project to on the college level, other than he's a decorated kid. So if that's their final choice, I guess they're in great shape. But I don't know. Maybe something else will shake loose. But maybe one of the other guys who declared the transfers who are also had tested the waters, maybe one of those will stay in it. I'm not aware enough to know what exactly is going to shake down from this.
Yeah, and I mean, we still got we think we know what Devo Davis is going to do, but we don't really know. I mean, he didn't get on that combine list, so is he coming back? Jordan Walsh, I don't know whether that's 50-50. I don't even know. I mean, how do you evaluate that in your head, Tom? What Jordan Walsh's likelihood of being back is? I don't even know what numbers to put on it.
The way I evaluated in my head was what he said in post-game, that he knows there's parts of his game he needs to work on. And I think if he turned pro right now, he'd be playing, developmental league, overseas, G League. I don't know what all options there are, but I don't think NBA draft ready.
None of those things you listed, I think, are better than playing for Eric Musselman in Fayetteville in the world of NIL. I think name me any of those options that aren't that would come ahead of Fayetteville.
I cannot, and I think another year of training under a guy who's got a proven track record of developing NBA talent and working on the NBA level, is a nice feather in your cap.
I mean, just look through the list of, what's 13 on there, including Mekhi Mitchell. The inbound high school players, they're not leaving your roster. You wouldn't think, like Mark or Ellis, who transferred in, they're not going anywhere. If Davis and Walsh both come back and you get Holland, I mean, the music's going to stop and there's not going to be a seat for somebody. It's not going to be Brazil. I don't think it would be Jalen Graham, and that unfortunately leads you to the name Joseph Pinion on this roster. So I just wonder if, today being the last day to enter the portal, we're going to hear news about someone other than Devo or Mekhi Mitchell or any of those things.
Well, I mean, I would be on alert for that. My radar would be up to,
my antennas are up a little bit.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a real thing, the fact that you have to have 13 scholarship players and you can't go beyond that. So, yeah, something's going to shake loose here pretty soon.
All right, it's just it boils down to math, like most things. So, speaking of math, you got 5 versus 3, I guess, by most people's account this weekend in baseball. I was asking the question earlier in the show, Tom, biggest thing to happen on this campus since when? I mean, there's not been very many top 5 matchups where Arkansas was in the top 5, their opponent was in the top 5. There's probably a recent baseball example. We went back to the media guide, and they don't have the rankings in there for each game. We're going to have to do a little more homework on that. But this is a rare deal we're going to see this weekend.
Yeah, and now you've got me thinking, and I'm writing the advanced story for tomorrow on this series. The last time something like that occurred, maybe an LSU visit or, Vanderbilt came in here last year. I don't think they were, top 20. I don't know what Vanderbilt was ranked, but Arkansas was certainly ranked well for the penultimate series like this one.
But you think about basketball, you think about football, and, I mean, both teams being in the top 5, nothing comes to mind. I mean, go back to the Petrino days where you had some teams in the top 5, but there were some road matchups like the one at LSU and maybe a top 10 matchup on the road that we've seen. But top 5, unless I'm just blanking out on one, it's a really neat opportunity for fans this weekend.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a rare deal. We go with the USA Today coaches rankings where South Carolina is 7th, so we'd have to do one of these in the top 7 for our purposes.
Don't you know the rule, Tom? You go with the highest poll, right? That's
what all the SIDs. Yeah. That's right, man. The fan rule, the SIDs, whatever the highest ranking is, go with it. But there's so many baseball polls that we several years ago decided let's go with the one that we feel like maybe has the most weight. It's got 60 coaches or whatever who vote on it. They're in the game, so we chose that one.
All right. So what's at stake? What's at stake? I'm sorry. What's at stake this weekend? What's the winner get out of this?
Well, you remember a couple of weeks ago we were saying this could be the series who determines who's in the final, who's in the 8 that's going to host super regionals if they advance that far. I don't know if we're still in that conversation, but because South Carolina struggled a little, and even though their RPI is still good and they're at least 5 in one poll, if they upset Arkansas and win this series, I do think they reemerge into the hosting the first 2 rounds dialogue. Arkansas is clearly in that, and the fact that they've done this with the injury list that they've dealt with has been phenomenal. I wrote about this today. South Carolina is dealing with a ton of injuries. Mm-hmm. Like three of their infielders are out, and they had to move their catcher to the infield. So that weakened, I think, their defense at catcher. And they're a team that's relied on the home run a lot. Their top home run hitter, Ethan Petrie, is still with them, and he's got 21 home runs. They're tied with Tennessee with 103 home runs for the tops in the SEC. So Arkansas's got to keep the ball in the park, and hopefully you'll see some of their outfielders returning, and hopefully you see Hunter Holland in position to give them a stronger outing, dealing with his leg issue, and things start rounding into shape for Arkansas. But what's at stake is I think the winner is in a very strong position to host the first 2 rounds.
Tom Murphy with us here. Tom, you mentioned the injuries on both sides, Arkansas and South Carolina. Dave is going to get asked about that later on at 10:30. Do you think he kind of lets us into Brady Tigert situation as well? Could we see Tigert go a full 5-6 innings if he's pitching lights out this weekend?
Well, he has discussed Tigert's pitch limits. He threw 20, I think, the first, and then in one inning, and I think he threw 20 in 2 innings at Mississippi State. And the thought was, do you bring him out for the third because his pitch limit had been up to maybe like 35 for the second outing? But Arkansas had such long offensive innings, they decided just, not push it. He finished his mound out in the bullpen with Will McIntyre on the mound. So I think he might be up to the 50, 55, 60 limit, which could give you, 3 innings or 4 innings if he's efficient. And, man, his breaking ball has looked sharp. He's got plenty of velocity on his fastball. You can see it's basically a fresh arm. And so if they get 4 innings out of Tiger this weekend, you can start to see this pitching staff, go, get into better position.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to count on certain guys for more innings. Like you can use Cody Adcock very effectively. You can tell Hagen Smith, and I'll tell you what, to me in the pitching category, he's the biggest question mark because he hasn't been efficient. He's pitching, he's getting people out, but he's walking too many guys and he's throwing too many pitches.
Yeah.
Do you want that to happen as a starter, or do you want him to close the 3 innings of game 1? And so, to me, he's the biggest dilemma they face is how do you use him? Do you start the weekend with him as you did last weekend? You don't want to pitch Hunter Holland on short rest. Do you move Brady Tigert up and pitch him on short rest? So, to me, where you have Hagen Smith, and they may be in a position where he has to start game 1, or maybe you start Will McIntyre. I don't know, but it's a real tricky deal. But it's worked out for them, and I'm sure they're going to find a solution that they feel best fits their arm.
We saw 2 true freshmen last year in Hagen and Brady really come on as of late. More Hagen, Brady kind of trailed off a little bit down the stretch. But Gage Wood is the true freshman that everyone's talking about this year out of Batesville. Is he the guy that you're wanting to see on Friday nights come in the 7th in most cases and close out the game? Or are you confident that true freshman is capable of doing that, especially in postseason ball?
Well, he's certainly shown the nerve. He's shown he's got a great fastball, and he's had a couple of bad outings. You take the Georgia outing away, and maybe there was one earlier.
TCU, yeah,
but yeah. So he's got what it takes to stand down the big power hitters in this conference. If he doesn't mangle the double play ball against Georgia, his last I don't know. You can count them on 2 fingers. Outings have been pretty good.
Yeah.
What I think they'd like to be able to get to is have Hagen Smith in the starting rotation and use Gage Wood twice on a weekend and just close. I mean, use him as a traditional closer or use him as a setup man for Tigert if that's the role that he develops into. But it looks to me like for a staff that's had so much trouble that they've sorted things out in a pretty good way, that their options are going to start growing, and they probably have a lot better feel for exactly how many pitches Gage Wood can throw on a weekend. I don't mind him closing with 3 innings as he's done a few times the way Hagen Smith has done. But I think ultimately a guy you think can strike out the side in the 9th inning or come in with the bases loaded and get people out, you just want to use him a couple times on a weekend and limit his pitch count some. So, yeah, I think he's fully capable of giving you the multiple innings on a Friday, but I'd like to see him grow into the twice-a-weekend guy.
And I don't think in all those players we were talking about, we mentioned Peyton Stovall. We're talking a lot about pitching. Here's a guy who's been battling a sore shoulder. I guess we'll learn maybe a little bit more about that, but he's been a guy that might have a few question marks around him.
You do, and you wonder if his shoulder has affected his hitting because he's popped up a lot recently. And he's provided a few key hits here and there, but the shoulder thing's been bothering him for a while.
Was it A&M? He had the grand slam against A&M though in that first game. So
he did, and so if you can get that one big hit on a weekend, you can live with. If he can live with his shoulder soreness, you can deal with that. but they need him in the lineup, and he's a key guy in terms of being more of a veteran. And you could see his arm was bothering him when he was trying to complete double plays in the A&M game. In the last game that Sunday, he dropped what could have been a double play, picked it up and got the force out at second, but you could just tell it was bothering him. Yeah. So hopefully he'll be back stronger than ever, or better, and they start rounding in the spots in their batting line.
Real quick, we got less than a minute here, but Tom, one thing, there's a silver lining to all these injuries. A lot of young players with not a lot of experience have gotten quality innings, quality pitches, quality at bats this year. That's going to pay a dividend somewhere down the road. It could even be in the postseason this year.
They really have, and I was going to segue into that too. That all these injuries have put, the Hunter Grimeses and the Peyton Holts, and Harold Cole's gotten more time, but these guys have shown that. Robinette against LSU had a huge home run, and so they've delivered. And Neville, not all of them have great batting averages, but they've played in road parks and they've held their own. They've made defensive plays that were good. Neville had a great defensive play the other night. So it pays dividends for down the line. And basically, Arkansas's fill-in guys have helped them sustain better than South Carolina's in the last week when they had so many guys out and they got swept at Kentucky.
Tom, it'll be a fun weekend. Don't forget your parking pass. You're going to need it. We'll see you at the ballpark.
Thanks for that reminder, Tommy. Y'all have a great weekend.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.